Hi everyone, this is Janet Wakeland with Remarkably Created, and as announced, we are going to create this really fun card together. We're going to make it from start to finish, and then I'm going to show you some variations, and we're going to kind of get you going on creating. So the supplies that I'm using for this card are coming from the mini catalog. This catalog goes live for the public on September 4th. If you're one of my customers, these are arriving every day in the mail. I'm getting lots of happy, excited messages about those of you that are receiving them. If you do not have a demonstrator that you work with and would love one, simply email me or message me via Facebook. The email is up in the description. So we're going to use early espresso cardstock. We're going to use basic white. We're going to die cut one of the reindeer from this reindeer fun paper. And then we're going to use this sentimental, I think it's called Sentimental Christmas designer paper. This paper has something special about it in addition to being sentimental and really, really sweet. And that is the fact that $3 from the sale of every pack of this paper will support children's literacy at the end of the catalog year. They will take that large donation and support children in their reading needs. So we're also going to be using this sweet new pom-pom ribbon. And this pom-pom ribbon is so cool. When we think of pom-poms, normally we think of kind of round, fluffy balls. And these look like that, but in the reality is they're flat. They lay really nice in an envelope. They don't add bumps and bulk to your envelope or anything like that. So they're kind of like faux pom-poms if we wanted to call them something like that. So we'll be using that. We're going to use a circle from the Stylish Shapes. We'll use one of the red dots from the berries for the reindeer's nose. And then we're going to be using something called wobbles. Wobbles come in 2 different sizes, and when I'm done with the video, I'll go back up and I'll link the source for the 2 different size wobbles. They add so much fun to your crafting. So let's go ahead and let's get started with preparing everything that we're going to be working on. And I think I buried my little scissors. So first that I want to do is I want to die cut one of the reindeer. And so I'm just going to kind of cut largely around the reindeer that has a coordinating die. And now I can set this piece of paper aside. Then I will be die cutting or cutting down the cardstock and cutting down the paper in just a second. But let's do our die cutting first, and then we can have that out of the way and concentrate on some of the other things. So Christmas is coming. It's not far down the road. I don't like to think of the actual number of days until Christmas, but it's definitely coming. And if you do not have the stamp cut and emboss and you've been a very good crafter this year, this is definitely something that you want to ask Santa for. And I'm already looking, oh yeah, it's right here in front of me. I've got the reindeer fun. I got a little nervous there for a second. I tried to be really like almost overly prepared. I have this bad habit of forgetting things. Every time I think I'm ready, there's always one thing. So, but again, the stamp cut and emboss just allows you to make really fun 3D items. So it's great to work with that. And then we can put this, let's put it over here on our magnet so we don't lose it. Let's grab our reindeer. And there is a sweet bundle called Reindeer Fun, and that's where this reindeer is coming from, is, if I can get him out of the packet, is from this Reindeer Fun. And there's actually 2 reindeer in there. So I'm going to lay the reindeer over the image. Try not to get my head up under there. You don't need to see all those gray hairs. And if you're worried about it shifting around at all, you can always take a piece of washi tape and hold it in place with washi tape or painter's tape, something like that, even a Post-it note, so that it doesn't shift as you're rolling it through. You don't have to go back and forth with it. I do it just because that way I don't have to reach around and pull it out. And it just kind of gives that a little extra depth cut to it. So those are the 2 things that we are die cutting. So we can put our dies away, and we can now work with doing some cutting. So I'm going to set these up here so that we don't lose them. We're going to bring in our paper trimmer. This is another great, if you've been a really good crafter this year, another great, wonderful thing to ask Santa for. We're going to take an 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock, and we're going to simply cut it in half, which means that we will have a finished piece that is 5.5 by 8.5. So I'm working with just half a piece of cardstock. And then I'm going to take, this paper is actually double-sided. I'm working with both sides of that. When you go to make your pleats, you want to make sure that you're aware of the directionality. Now, if I was worried about, you know, the reindeer all going across my card this way, I'm going to make the cut so that they go that way. I'm not going to cut this way because they'd all be standing on their heads, right? With the snowflakes, it actually doesn't matter, okay? I'm going to cut this paper at 12 inches by 4 inches, and I will show you some variations on this later, but we're going to cut it at 12 inches by 4 inches. But again, in this case, directionality doesn't matter because the snowflakes are going all different directions. The other time that it might matter is depending on how deep your pleat is going to be. Some people call this a curtain fold, some people call it a pleat. I like to call it pleating. Depending on how much of this is going to show, then you might also be worried about the directionality of your paper. So in this case, I've got the reindeer going upright just in case their hooves or something appears down here. I don't want them looking upside down, if that makes sense. And then I need a little piece for the top of this right here. So again, I'm going to cut my paper at 4 inches. A lot of times I'll do a standard 4-inch cut on my 12-inch paper because that gives me, you know, when I'm working on future cards, whether they're going landscape or portrait, I get a 1/4 inch border. So a lot of times I do make a 4-inch cut so I don't feel like anything is wasted. So we're going to do 4 inches by 2.5. So we have a piece of designer paper, just as a reminder now, that is 4 inches by 12 inches, 4 inches by 3.5. We have a piece of our early espresso cardstock. I'm going to kind of keep this up in the corner so we know what we're referring to. And then one more thing left to do is we need to do some scoring. So I'm going to bring in the early espresso cardstock. Stampin' Up's trimmer has a built-in scoring blade. Halfway on the 8.5 by 11 side is 4 1/4. So we're just going to give that a nice crease, and that just allows us to have a nice fold on our card, and we'll burnish it in just a minute. While we have our, say the word, Janet. While we have our trimmer out, we're going to extend the arm because we're working with a 12-inch piece of paper. And I'm going to start with my paper at 12 inches. Just so it's all laying there so you can kind of see it and get an idea for what we're doing. And I'm going to score at 1 inch. Then I'm going to score at 1.5 inches, 1 inch, 1.5, 1 inch, 1.5, 1 inch, 1.5, 1 inch, 1.5, the whole way across. And I can see the numbers over here, so I'm going to move it down to 11, which gives me a 1 inch score. I'll move it down to 9.5. That's going to give me 1.5. So let me just make sure I just did that talking. So I'm going to be quiet here for a minute now as I do the next one. So it's going to be 1 inch, 1.5, and so on. Okay, and I'm just going to work from this way. And now we're going to come down here. And make sure I got this one right. The other thing is, as it gets shorter, you can always flip it around, and now you can work from this side knowing that, okay, we just did 1.5. So now we'll do 1. We're going to put it on the 1.5 mark. And the easiest way to do that is this line right here. Make sure I'm doing this right. Scoring and talking at the same time can be very deadly in crafting. Anything to do with numbers and talking at the same time. I don't know how math teachers do it. I really, really don't. But just showing you another way that you could measure these if you wanted to. So we've got our score marks the whole way across. And that's the only thing that we're going to be scoring. So we can now put your trimmer away and you're all done. And all I'm going to do right now is just reinforce those creases. And we'll bring in our bone folder. And again, and I'll show you then how to pleat it here in just a second. I'm just reinforcing. And whether I do it with snowflake side up or whatever, just creasing it is going to help it fold either direction. So it doesn't matter that the finished side is snowflakes and I'm creasing with the reindeer up. And while I have the bone folder in my hand, let's give our card. See how it pops open? Watch the magic of burnishing. Now look at it lay. That's one of the reasons why you burnish, so you get that nice fold. So now what we want to do is we want to start folding in, okay? So I'm going to start on this side and I'm going to fold in, and you're just going to kind of go back and forth pleating. You're going to have this little extra piece on the end. Don't worry about that piece for now. I do need to bring the trimmer in for one more thing. I need to make a diagonal cut. I always like to make mine after I've done all of my folds and everything, so that I can kind of see where I'm going to go. And this is going to be very personal, how you, the angle that you cut yours at, how deep you want this to be. And you're just going to lay this on your trimmer, kind of put it at an angle, and you're just going to take your blade. It can even come off the side if you want it to, if you want this to be a little shorter. And you're just going to take your trimming tool, save this, okay, you're going to use it, but you have that little angle happening now. And what that little angle allows you to do is that's where the contrast is going to come in on your project, okay? So we need to adhere it. You're going to open up your fold, put your adhesive in. No, my adhesive's being contrary. Come on. Doggone it. Hold on a second. Is it going to roll now? Oh, doggone it. We're just going to use liquid glue. I don't know what's up. It's like me. It's probably hot and tired. It's been a long 97-degree, 100% humidity day here in Louisiana. We still love it, though. I'm not going to complain. Just telling you the way it is. We don't visit in August, guys. You come visit in October, April, or during Mardi Gras. So we have this piece happening here right now. You've got a little longer edge at the moment. What I do is then I know I want mine to be 4 inches wide. So this little extra tail piece, okay, where am I going? I'm gonna lay my folded glued piece down on the thing so it's 4 inches. And this one's just a little extra than 4 inches. Probably because I didn't score exactly as I went across. I just make sure that it is 4 inches. If you scored exactly at 1.5 and 1 inch, yours will be perfect and you won't need to give it just a little trim or a little haircut. So now let's start to put this baby together. So we have our card front, make sure it's opening the right direction. We have our little piece of reindeer, and I can already tell you, see, the reindeer are going the wrong direction. Let's cut this so the reindeer are going the right direction. Okay, this piece won't go to waste. Look at that beautiful piece. We can definitely use that. So 2.5 inches by 4 inches. We'll get these sweet little Bambi in that. Now it's going the right direction. This is real stamping, guys. I mean, we're making it from scratch. I don't have it all pre-done for you or anything like that. So if there's a few little boo-boos, that's real life. Reality crafting, right? So we have that piece happening here. Then we're going to just take and put adhesive . And I'm going to set this down on here so that I have a border the whole way around. And I have my glass mat magnetized. What I did, if you see this little piece popping out over here on the side, this piece, that's a magnet board. And with really heavy duty rare earth magnets, I can go ahead and the magnet now will hold that absolutely in place really, really nice. So I did magnetize my board. It's not permanently magnetized. All I have to do is remove this from underneath. But we're gonna let that dry for a second while we do a little bit of work. So we're gonna cut this to 4 inches. Let's just move the magnet down a little bit. Take a piece of tear tape. Here we go. We're going to come across where the 2 pieces of paper meet, and we're just going to add a piece of tear tape and just rub it with my finger so the corner comes up just a little bit. And you can also rub across it with like your bone folder, and that sometimes helps that pop up. I'm going to push this down in, and actually it's still a little longer. I thought I cut it right, but that's okay. I think all crafters have the ability to become hairdressers. We're really good at trimming things, right, to make them fit. So we're going to set that aside. Now we need to work with our little reindeer. The wobbles are double-sided with self-peeling adhesive backing. So you're going to peel the backing from either side first. It doesn't really matter. Some people say it makes a difference if you use the hard side or the soft side. One side is really hard plastic, and one side is a little softer plastic. And I'm going to put that down here in the center of my circle, and then we're going to peel off the other backing. And you can actually trim these a little more if you need to. I've been known to cut them down even a little bit smaller if I want something smaller to actually wobble. And I'm going to turn it, it's a rectangle, so I'm going to turn it so that it hides behind the deer. Find the widest part of the deer's body so that it hides behind it. And we're going to take our little red nose, and we're going to put our little red nose on him. And then we'll go ahead and we'll add lots of adhesive. We're going to put that up here. Hold that down, and that'll just be fine because it'll hold it in place while we put the last thing on it. You could definitely put your greeting on with a tag. You could put it on with a label. I like to take advantage of this little open part on the cardstock, and it gives me a chance to use some of the smaller stamps that I don't usually use. This is a new greeting set that is debuting on September 4th in that holiday catalog that I showed you. And we're going to use Peace and Joy to finish this up. So let me just grab that greeting. We'll get a little block. Put it on my grid so I make sure it's nice and straight. We're going to work with embossing. So what you need for embossing is you need embossing powder. You need an ink like Versamark. It's wet. It will hold the powder. If you are working someplace like right now, like I've mentioned, it's very humid here in Louisiana. So a lot of times you'll have a little bit of moisture or something on your fingers. Maybe you've got lotion or oils. If you take your little embossing buddy and rub across it, or maybe you've made your own embossing powder with cornstarch and cheesecloth, what that does is it's anti-static, and it keeps the powder from sticking anywhere but where you're going to put the wet ink down. Okay, so let's go ahead and emboss. Make sure I've got this good and covered. Now it's going to be contrary. My blocks are engraved, and if I use the wrong side, we're just going to do it like this. Press, lift, it works. But if I use the wrong side, the engraving's rough and it doesn't always stick right. So that's what happens when you try to have pretty blocks, then they're not as versatile as you want them to be. Did you hear that stick? That's that magnet. Works great. Knock off any extra powder. Take and put the excess back in your jar. And now you're going to take a heat tool and you're going to heat it. And again, if you're not into heat embossing, you can simply stamp it. You can put your greeting on a different way, but you would take and you would heat emboss it. I'm not going to do that right now because of the sound and all of that, but I'll bring in the finished one again so that you can see the difference with that nice bright white that pops on the early espresso once we heat emboss it. So let's take a look at a couple of different examples for you. So here's one that we did a little wider. This one's done at 1 inch, and let me get it right. I just had it here, right in front of me. 1.5 inches, and it started out as 6 by 12. It's the way that I always start out. So it's 1.5 inches and 1/2 inch. So real fun there, just kind of a nice way. You've got that little pop there. This Merry Christmas is debuting again in the holiday catalog. It's the Peaceful Seasons dies. But real fun, real simple, couple little dots, a little bit of twine, and you're ready to go. But you can see here that the pleats are a little wider. This one here, we started off actually with a piece that's a little smaller because this is a narrow card. Started out with a piece that's 7 inches wide by 6 inches tall because this is a slimline card. Isn't that beautiful? Look at those papers. This is a new bundle, Regal Floral, that's going to debut, and there's actually a whole suite as well, as you see with the designer papers. A little bit of ribbon and some fun layering, and you've got that deep fold, so you can go a little bit different there. Remember I told you when we were die cutting, don't throw these little pieces away. You're definitely going to have some fun with them. So the extra piece here that I cut off from the floral, look at the fun tag. Don't waste anything, right? As crafters, we don't want to waste anything. And then the snowflake one, the one that I cut off from the reindeer, we have this really fun tag here. And then from this one right here, the little extra piece that was cut off, this is a new box that's coming from Stampin' Up. I don't have it totally closed up right because I want to be able to fill it first before I open the seal. It's got self-adhesive tape here. But again, just adding that little piece right across. And then there's a new little sneak peek for you there as well. So some fun. Playing around, just showing you some differences. Let me bring these in here for just a second. So again, starting with 12 inches by 4 inches, what I find is that then allows me to, let me get rid of this for a second. So this is a little longer than what I need. So now I'm going to be able to do just a little bit of trimming, but I always start with a 12-inch piece. And in this case, this one is 1.5 by 1 or 1/2 inch by 1 3/4. Beautiful long piece. And when we put it across our cardstock, I just have that little piece of contrast underneath for you, but you can see those different folds, and you just have that little bit of peekaboo there for you. But let's see if we can look at the difference here for a second. Let's put that magnet on there. And so this one is 1/2 inch by 1 3/4. And then just to show you, same piece of paper, and we're going to score it so you can see how narrow these pleats are. This is 1.5 by 1 inch. So you're going to get a much narrower pleat. So you can actually play around with pleating. There's no absolute have to. I have found that I don't go any bigger than 2 inches, but I play around with, you know, these being slightly off center. Now you don't want 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch. You won't get the flap right here. You do need a little bit of a flap right here. So you need one piece to be slightly larger than the other. Now if you want it really tiny, you could do 1/4 inch, okay? So you can actually play around. Start with a 12 by 12 piece of paper, whether it's 12 by 4 or 12 by 3, 12 by 4 or 12 by 3, and then just alternate your scoring marks. Also, like, let me just totally throw this out there for you. I did this one again, every other one, 1 inch, 1.5, 1 inch, 1.5, 1 inch, 1.5. This one was done 1/2 inch, 1 3/4. Okay, the one that we did in the demo, I did 1 inch, 1.5, 1 inch, 1.5. I did symmetrical. I did it the exact same repeating pattern. Do you have to do it that way? No, they could get gradually bigger. They could get gradually smaller. What's really fun is once you have the base idea and you've played around a little bit, and this is a great use of old designer paper that you know you will never use again. Grab old paper. Don't start with new paper. Grab old paper and just start playing around, which is what I did. I brought new paper in to show you for demonstration purposes, but now I have some older paper that's done. It's scored. These Post-it notes will go back on those. Those will go into a little envelope. But have some fun with pleating. Again, play around with the widths here, the widths here. I did all of mine for these samples symmetrically. And then just as a reminder, once you cut yours on an angle, save those little pieces that are left. And how wide this piece is, again, that's another choice that you have. There's no rule. You can make this longer and just have it a real tiny pleat. I could have made this shorter and had more of a severe angle. It's all going to be how you angle it on your cutter when you cut it. So, and again, saving those little extra pieces. And then once you get your practice down, starting with smaller pieces, like in this case, I did do 7 inches wide by 6 inches tall because I wanted a really tall, skinny pleat for that one. Okay, so that one is 7 inches wide by 6 inches. And then for the 6 inches, I actually cut it at, this is 3 inches long. Gave me that nice look right there. So any questions about any of the product, let me know. I will get pictures taken of these. We'll get them posted. If you start playing around with the pleats and the angles with Stampin' Up! Product, I would love to see you share your own sample back here on my page so I can see what kinds of fun stuff that you're up to. And remember, I know you definitely need wobbles in your life. Trust me, I am addicted to wobbles. I love them. It's really hard not to make everything wobble. But again, if you also need wobbles in your life like Donna does, I will link the resources for them up in the top of the comments here in just a second, guys. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Got lots more fun planned later in the week for you. And don't forget, this paper is not available till September 4th, but there are beautiful designer papers on sale right now through August 31st in my online store, janetwakeland.stampinup.net. Thanks, guys.